Good junglers, very good players too, turns out.
We're wrapped up with last game's business. Let's get into this one. It's Schalke versus Misfits, pick and ban phase engaging. Misfits, remember, these guys are going 5-0. Schalke trying to prove that they can still tango with the big boys.
Yep, my champion to look at. I like having a champion we look at in each draft, and for me, that's Amazing's Camille. He's tried to play this so many times so far in this split, and he's really just made those early plays. All those clips Jarge was running us through, it was all with Amazing on that Camille. That's really been the Kickstarter, I feel like, for Schalke.
And speaking of kicker, right now it's left open. We'll see if Amazing does take that Camille. Nocturne being banned away, Talia being banned away by Schalke up against Maxlore. The Aatrox is also off the board. Misfits have actually more focused on the carries. So with the Vladimir, the Yasuo, the Zoe, they will get the first pick. I wonder if they try to take this Camille away themselves or if they're not respecting it.
Personally, I would really like to see the Camille taken away. There's already, you know, two of the strongest junglers on this patch banned, the Nocturne as well as that Talia.
Quick Swain though.
That's something we haven't seen too much of. It's popped up here and there, but a lot of flexibility with this champion.
Yeah, speaking of, I would have said that this would, you know, and any other team, you take the nameplates off, Misfits Gaming, I would have said, oh, you know, this is probably going down bot lane. But we know Hansama still worships at the church of AD carries, and he does it really well. So Schalke find an answer here, and it is going to be the Trundle and the Aurelia.
And it's the Trundle specifically to take that away from the Swain. Swain plus Trundle is a pretty nasty combo because the Trundle pillar is point-and-click CC that guarantees the passive pull-in from Swain. So that's why Amazing went for that instead of the Camille.
But that does mean the Camille can be picked up by Misfits Gaming, so they get themselves the powerful choice to add on to that one. Hovering on the Mundo, we saw it banned away last time around. Alfari's been having a field day on this champion. Pretty much standing still and getting kills.
Yeah, walking around, going everywhere that he pleases.
Wherever he pleases, in fact. And they'll lock it in.
Ooh,
Insta-pike.
I love this.
Okay.
Yeah,
man, these guys know what they want.
Yeah, one of the things I was talking about a lot last week with Schalke was the fact that Vander was the one making a lot of plays in conjunction with Amazing. Now that he's on the pike, it makes it so much easier to roam to that mid lane and have this game plan of shut Senkux down.
Senkux has actually been having a pretty solid split so far. We'll see what they end up giving him if it ends up being the Swain in the mid lane.
And on that point, it very likely is the Swain in the mid lane because these are two AD carries that only play AD carries. They're not playing any of that other garbage. They're like two of the only ones, too. Yeah, it's Hansama and Upset. And Hansama Swain, that's not something I really want to see. I want to see him on the Draven again.
It would be the greatest
exciting champions. I don't want to see the Swain in the bot lane.
All right,
that's
well,
a Senkux
we'll see if you get your wish. We'll see if you get your wish right now. Now, I do want to remind everybody, speaking of Senkux champions, that due to bug causing his stars to sometimes become invisible, Aurelion Sol is globally disabled for all competitive games on patch 8.12. Dropping that one in a game later, forgot to mention it in picks and bans.
I mean, it's only relevant when Senkux is playing,
exactly,
right?
Yeah, a bit of light pollution apparently, so Aurelion Sol can't see his own stars. Sejuani now last ban for Misfits Gaming. We're back over to the Schalke side of things, and they take the Cho'Gath for Vizichachi, an old favorite of his.
Yeah, the Sejuani ban is very interesting because it makes you think that Misfits were thinking, oh, maybe that's a Trundle in the top lane to counter out the Mundo. That would be an adaptation I'd like to see. Not going to be getting that in this game, of course, with the Cho'Gath locked in. But now we see that Schalke are trying to save that AD carry pick for last, for Upset, because that way they can try to get a little bit of a counter matchup going, I feel like, against the best player on the Misfits team.
And the best player locks in. That's a good bottom lane, actually. Good old bottom lane. I used to call it one of the bodyguard because you get that extra proc off with the Braum. It can block the damage on the Lucian. Now over to Upset. We'll just be seeing the good old AD carry matchup. The Ezreal still left open.
So one of the benefits of the Ezreal with Pyke is that he's very safe on his own, so he can let Vander go around the map doing whatever he wants, and he's at very little risk of actually being killed because of his mobility and his slipperiness.
So it won't be all about the bottom lane for Schalke, but for Misfits, they'll still try to play to win, to push Upset back time and time again. We'll see where Vander ends up going, but I do like this Schalke composition. It does seem to kind of conform to their strengths.
Yeah, there's a lot of playmaking on this team, specifically in the hands of Vander and Nukeduck, two of the players that we want to be making moves here earlier on. I think the duo of Vander and Amazing is going to be very strong at moving towards that middle lane and setting up Nukeduck to be in a position where he can carry.
But come on, man. All honesty, it's going to be about the junglers.
Misfits.
It's going to be about the junglers, man. Maxlore is on Camille, Amazing's latest signature champion. And he's taking the Trundle to try and deny what they could have done with the Swain. I want to see what they can get done early on in this game.
This is going to be a fun one, and it's a classic Misfits comp with that kill lane in the bottom lane. There's a lot of kill threat with the Lucian and the Braum if they find those engagements. And of course, Maxlor on something that can be a little bit more proactive earlier on is going to be enabled by the rest of his team.
Yeah, not to mention self-sufficiency up in the top, but
yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's where the junglers actually take a couple of trips early on. We saw what happened when Chachi could get a little bit punished a little last week. Alfari has been dominating people on his own. Misfits are just having such a good time right now. 4-0 is such a great start in any split. But in light of what happened in the spring, these guys have really got the swagger back.
It's a complete reversal of what we saw. They've got the confidence, they've got the momentum behind them, and they're trying to prove this week they're the best team in Europe.
They might just do it. 5-0 would be the scoreline if they can take down FC Schalke no fear. We'll see. As we head up onto Summoner's Rift, Schalke trying to prove that they can still be considered a top-tier team. Redemption is also in the cards for them. That's what they're looking for this time around. They fell short of a lot of expectations in the spring as well. We'll see if there's going to be any shenanigans in this early game. It looks like just the line of scrimmage.
The first thing my eyes are drawn to is the double teleport in the bottom lane for Misfits. Both Hansama and Mickey running that option. Going to give them a lot of lane pressure. They can just stay in bot lane as long as they please and keep Upset, pressured underneath his own tower, which should make it difficult for Evander to get those roams off.
So what's the game plan then? You look at this, Hansama, Mickey X just take the first tower, rotate towards the mid, Misfits, wash, rinse, repeat?
In an ideal world, yes. The issue comes is if Amazing gets proactive here in the early game, because that's been a hallmark of Schalke, is getting him to sort of light the fire underneath the rest of Schalke and just pick out one lane where he wants to really, really abuse. And in this game, I think that's going to be even more important because the Misfits, left untouched, basically just win in every single matchup.
Yeah, and we saw how scary Camille Jungle can be last time around. Actually ended up winning the game. We'll see if Maxlor can step into Memento's shoes. And speaking of Maxlor, let's kind of compare him a little bit to Schalke's jungler, who has been a very critical component of the Schalke lineup.
Yeah, you have K+A much higher there for Maxlor, but it's a little bit misleading because I feel like while Maxlor does have the better stat line, it's because the rest of his team is enabling him to farm up a little bit more and then only make plays when they're 100% going to work out, whereas Amazing has to really be involved a lot more.
Oh yeah, one is definitely playing the game on easy mode and the other one's going hard at this point. So that is the key. Like, is Amazing going to be able to go above and beyond to kind of match that pressure a little bit more? He's on the Trundle. This is... last week, exempted with the 6-kill Trundle in like 10 minutes. I would say Trundle maybe not the best early game jungle ganker.
Yeah, that's the theory, right? But then you have players like Memento that just blow that out of the water.
No one told Scuttle Crab.
What he is quite good at, though, is finding counter ganks and also killing those Scuttle Crabs. He's a murderer in the river.
Yeah, so is Maxlor, too. In fact, he steps in to the Schalke jungle, taking away the Gromp as well.
It's a complete mirror of these two paths. It's really interesting because usually you'll see junglers in the professional level start on their red buff to make sure that they can win any fight in the river over the Scuttle Crab, but it seems almost like both junglers mind-gamed each other into going for the same exact route.
Ooh, looks like that ward just expired just in time for Maxlor to actually step through without getting caught. So it looks like they may be destined to meet after all. Maxlor taking the long route back up to his jungle. He's going to find it very empty. If Amazing's able to get out of there in time, Suncook's even making moves. In fact, it looks like he might want to try and help collapse on the Trundle, but he takes the exit. And
while Trundle might not be the best early game ganker, his clear speed is nothing to laugh about. With the Q, the Chomp, stealing AD as well as the W to give him the attack speed, he's able to melt through camps relatively quickly, and now he's going to have that camp advantage because while he was clearing that entire top side of Misfits jungle, Maxlor, he was trying to make that rotation on over and wasn't able to punish Amazing.
Yeah, Senkux was even trying to join as well. Let's check back in with the bottom lane. As expected, the bullying is commencing. Hansama pushing Upset back. Now, Upset has been able to keep up in the farm department. That hasn't been an issue right now.
Yeah, it's doing just fine for him. It's also, I want to talk about this Pyke a little bit, because in the laning phase, he's actually quite good at finding all-ins. But with the Ezreal against a Braum, it is much more difficult. Instead, he's going to lean very heavily on the power of his passive, which gives him that regeneration whenever he walks out into the fog of war, and will make it much more difficult for Hansama and Mickey X to punish him in this 2-versus-2.
Of course, as you said in the pick and ban phase, his real goal is going to be trying to roam around the map and find some time, but he's locked up for the time being. Mickey will pop Squire's Bloom, going to run straight into Vander, gets yoinked back. Just a couple of auto attacks is all he's going to be able to punish him for, and the Winter's Bite pushing it back once again. So for the time being, it's still it's a much quieter affair than we had last time around, but I think that's much more to Misfits and Schalke's liking.
Yeah, Misfits just want to stay in that lane phase, scale on through, and have a jolly old time, and especially, we talk about this Pyke, keeping him pinned down here in the bottom lane, because when you run double teleport, you are always going to be trying to have that consistent shove, be dominating the lane and pinning your opponents down. The issue then comes when Schalke bring a few extra members into the bottom lane and you don't have a heal, you don't have an exhaust, and that's sort of the opportunity that Amazing could be looking for a little bit later down the road. Oh, Max Lord.
Speaking of looking for things.
He missed it.
He did. It's okay, no one
Wait,
saw
no,
that.
that's an issue, because now Amazing is here, and he wasn't able to take it down.
Unlucky. It's Ward War in the river.
This could be a 2v2.
Sencook's actually going to get pushed back. There's a level advantage.
Yeah, it's Hansama and Mickey, though, with priority in bottom lane, and that should get them this, unless there's a smite from Amazing.
Scuttle, it's very important to get Scuttle.
He's so important.
If only but for the fans.
Yes.
Securing that vision up.
Roughly the same value as one normal camp. The benefit is that usually you take it down a little bit faster, and it doesn't cost you any HP, so...
It also doesn't fight back.
He doesn't fight back.
It kind of feels mean to kill it.
Yep, he just doesn't even know. Doesn't know why people keep doing it, but he keeps coming back for more.
Alrighty. Now let's go ahead and check in with another interesting matchup. Is the mid lane. I want to focus in on Sencook's because Sencook's has kind of pulled... He's been the emblem of the 180 from the splits. Like, his spring split performance was not really all that great, and there were a lot of question marks around this guy. Like, was Misfits right to keep him on the roster? Were they going to swap him? What was going to happen? Instead, they keep him on, and their faith is rewarded. This guy actually has really shown some very impressive plays, the split.
Yeah, I like to call spring split Sencook's dark Sencook's, and the new Sencook's, you know, actual Sencook's. He's been playing so well, but takes a really bad trade against
Yeah, there's a
Nuke
caster
Duck.
curse right there.
Oh,
He
man.
does pull Nuke Duck right back and around. He's able to take a couple more minions out, but...
I think the most important thing here, though, is his actual laning stats. The KDA is nice, but his team is 4-0. You can sort of write that one off. The biggest is that he was down 10 CS on average at 15 minutes in the spring split. Now he's up almost 9, which is absolutely fantastic turnaround for this player.
Yeah, before anyone whips your calculators out and say, wait a second, I don't know if that adds up. The CSD does not include when he's playing against the funnel comps, so that one's a little bit different, right? It has slightly less games, but it's still a good point that in the standard matchups, he's doing a lot better in lanes.
Exactly, and even when he was playing against Fnatic's version of the funnel comp, he was still popping off. He kept even in gold, at least, because he was getting kills and really working well with Maxor to facilitate an early game advantage.
I was able to shut down the funnel comp at the end of the day. Now, there's a fight over the blue buff here in the jungle. It looks like Nuke Duck is actually trying to come in and help out, and all this is really doing, it's slowing down Maxlore.
Because Sencook's is falling very far behind in this mid lane. 17 CS at the moment, and I think it comes back to the draft a little bit, because usually Misfits are very proactive about getting the stronger jungle mid 2 versus 2. Swain, not the best early game. He's very limited on his range. He needs some items underneath his belt, the Rod of Ages especially, to start scaling up, and that means that you are going to be bullied around a bit.
Speaking of bullied, Upset and Vander continue to get pushed back, and yeah, talking about Sencook's, we were giving him some props for how much he's actually improved, but we don't want to blame him too much for the fact that, okay, he's not looking as impressive as in those games because he is in that unfavorable matchup.
Yep, definitely a struggle here for the Swain, but he'll turn into a team fighting god later on. As will the Aurelia, though, so it's definitely over on the side of Nuke Duck. One thing we haven't seen, though, is that early move out of Amazing we were almost expecting out of Schalke's jungle. Yeah,
well, Amazing has been traditionally relied upon to make these early plays, but Schalke, they actually have amassed themselves a gold lead. It's slim. It's only 400, but for a 0-0 game, this is actually not bad. Amazing has been just keeping Maxlore down. Now, he's going to have to fight for his own blue buff because Maxlore is hungry for one, and he actually decides he wants the kills instead. There's almost no mana, and Amazing's forced to flash.
Oh!
Just in time to avoid being first-blooded.
Amazing, like, that wasn't close, man. I got out of there no problem.
How much HP was that?
That was less than 10, I want to say. He was holding on to that flash for as long as possible, and he's glad he used it at the time he did, but he's still going to lose a lot of his camps here in Maxlore.
Yeah, so that's the pressure game turning back. Maxlore living in his jungle, and Vander is kind of caught a little bit here. There's no dive incoming, so he's not in any immediate danger, but he's still a little bit worried.
Yeah, and this is the intelligent play from Misfits. Again, Maxlore, not as much of the ganking type as he is set up by the rest of his team. He's intelligent in the fact that he plays around where his team is strong on the map. Top lane and mid lane, he's losing in those matchups for the side of Misfits, so he goes down to where Hansama has the Lucian and the Braum to really enable him to make that invade happen and almost get a kill.
And that's the power of Hansama and Mickey X's bot lane right now. And You know, these guys are continuing to prove that you don't need to go with this crazy new meta, switch around, play something AP in the bottom lane. No, you can just go standard, and as long as you're good enough, you can still win it. Yeah,
and wow, actually upset very early at Vampiric Scepter on that Ezreal. That'll eventually become a Blade of the Ruined King, but it's much more common we see the Trinity Force for that earlier spike, but he realizes that Hansama has a little bit of sustain himself, working towards his own Blade, and that means it's harder to stay in this lane because Hansama won't be chunked out whenever they go for an all-in.
That's very true. Now, speaking of all-ins, Nuke Duck's looking for Senkooks. In comes Vander. This is the roam we were talking about, but there's the Demonic Ascension on. Amazing! Denies him any further entry with the pillar. So Senkooks burning his ultimate there.
It's a very important cooldown on the Swain.
Oh, it's not done yet.
Didn't get too much of a drain off on the ultimate. So
that was a bit of a spook.
Yeah, looked a lot more powerful than it actually was there.
Swain is one of those champions that just, like, his abilities look like they do a lot of damage even when they don't.
The VFX on those are sweet, especially on that dragon.
You telling me you playtested?
I definitely did, and I was a big fan.
Yep. Well, I think Schalke will be a big fan of what just happened because they took no damage for burning Mickey X's ultimate.
Yep, and Senkooks, no ulti. He's actually getting ganked again.
I've seen this one again, yeah, but there's no ultimate this time, as
Not
you pointed
quite.
out. Teleport is going to come in to try and save his life, though. So, Misfits still trying to play around Senkooks, but they will be burning one teleport of Mickey X just to try and scare Schalke
Yeah, that's
off.
not really a big cost because that's not a top laner TP. That's your support's TP. Here goes Misfits.
Splitting the uprights, though. Mickey will find the Winter's Bite.
Whoa.
Senkooks comes back in for round 2. That is a scary sound effect as well.
That was spooky. Vander got us with that one.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
I mean, there's a lot of spook going on. You got Senkooks doing the Eye of Sauron thing, Vander doing his...
We have a lot of edgy champions.
Yeah, a lot of
edgy
champions for sure. Where's Kane?
I wish Kane got a little bit more play. Got played one time so far in the ULCS and didn't look that good.
Where were you last split, man? We saw some sick teams in mid and jungle. Ask Caps about it.
Too bad. Too bad it just doesn't work out because that's a champion that takes a little bit longer to come online, unlike the Camille and the Trundle that we're seeing in this game. Camille even can solo the dragons very early on, and the Ocean Drake is a very, very powerful tool to give to your lanes, especially when they're struggling.
Now, speaking of struggling, it looks like Schalke have opted to try and make a swap up top happen. And this has caught Misfits a little bit off guard because they've left the Mundo here.
And keep in mind, there's a teleport on Hansama, so if Misfits want to match the 2v2, which I very much believe they do, they TP him in right now because they are winning this bot lane matchup. Now top lane, Australia lanes, or imagine it or not. And
it just took 12 minutes to happen.
And he's up 15 CS, so they can continue to abuse this 2 versus 2 on the top end of the map because they elected to run the TP.
And you can see the big difference in the item spikes right now. You don't even need to look at the CSD because the Blade of the Ruined King is completed for Hansama. The Ezreal on upset side still only has the Bilgewater Cutlass and the Tear, and then everybody else is still kind of working towards that stacking. Schalke may have a gold lead in theory, but it definitely doesn't feel that way when you look at the bottom lane.
It's very interesting, this build on upset, because, of course, he will have a little bit more consistent DPS, and the max HP damage means a lot against a Mundo and a Swain and a Braum. So it's gearing up more for all-in team fights, I feel, rather than the Q poke that we often see out of Ezreal in the mid-game. That's definitely going to be a switch-up, I think, in style for this type of champion than we're used to seeing here in the ULCS.
That's fair. Now, while everything else has been happening on the map, Chachi and Alfari are adjusting to their new home down in the bottom side, and they've been fairly even back and forth. There's a slight CS advantage for Visit Chachi, and this is something that's unusual for Alfari. He's usually the one getting a little further ahead on the Mundo up against the Cho'Gath. He does go in with Burning Agony, tries to deal with him here. It looks like we might be in for a gank because Amazing is coming through. There's no vision here for Alfari, but he's playing it still very carefully.
It is still a Mundo, but it's against a Trundled and a Cho'Gath. That's a lot of damage.
Oh, he gets clipped. Let's see if they have the damage to take him down. I'm not so sure. The true damage would come in handy for Visit Chachi, but he doesn't get him in lethal range, and he just forces Alfari back.
To be fair, I really like the setup from Schalke with those two champions. Very good at bursting down the Mundo with the Subjugate. You can get him very low and then chomp him with that Cho'Gath, but while they invest a lot of resources in the bottom side, Misfits, they're taking the top lane tower.
Absolutely.
Uh-oh,
meanwhile, Senkooks might go down in the mid. There is going to be a Golden Swain to make those blades evaporate.
What are we saying here?
Let's go ahead and check it on Twitter, yeah. I appreciate that someone likes my description of the Scuttle Crowd, and it is NALCS. Keeps dying.
Oh yeah, let's get ready for some Rip Rivals, baby.
Oh yeah, that's coming.
Keep dying, they keep coming back for more, and then...
Yep. This time we're going over there, Ender.
Yeah, no, I would... God, imagine if I was from Los Angeles. That would be hideous.
No, right? It'd feel horrible.
I wouldn't be able to live with myself.
That's a good thing we don't have to worry about that, huh? Hey. This has been definitely a little slower of a game, but not because the teams are not trying to make plays. It's just much more subtle, it feels like.
And I think both teams have advantages where they expected them to. For Schalke, it's in the mid lane. They've kept trying to shut down Senkux, but all they've been able to do is build up that CS lead, whereas Hansama, I mean, we expect this guy to be dominating in the bottom lane. He's up 800 gold over Upset, which is almost that Vampiric Scepter. That's a pretty significant lead to have at just 15 minutes.
But no major mistakes from Schalke either. We haven't seen Upset go down yet. We haven't seen anybody die on either side, in fact, and it's because the gold lead is so slim here that they can be happy with the fact that they haven't lost out on too much. The tower's the big difference, and that's just going to happen. You're losing out on pressure. So I asked you in the very beginning of the game plan, is this going to be take the bot tower, rotate to mid, make it all happen? Okay, we Australia'd it. And it looks like this is happening.
Everything's upside down, but that bot lane turret is still very, very low, and that's why I really liked the play from Misfits to match up top, because all of a sudden they get that top tower. The second they even sneeze on that bot lane one, it is going to fall as well, and that'll make it very easy for them to continue to control the entire game. It's a little bit slower than we're used to seeing the Misfits play. Oh, Vander! That was sick.
That was clutch. Interrupting the Rift Herald.
I mean, to be fair, he just pressed Q, or I guess he held it down and then let go, but that's still a very big deal.
That's a skill button right there.
Look at this, look at this. If he doesn't do that, Misfits, they take mid tower, they rotate bot lane, they take bot lane tower, and then set up for Ocean Drake in 2 minutes. All of a sudden, they have 5 objectives, and Schalke are so far behind.
Well, speaking of so far behind, Vander is not getting out of this one alive. So he's going to pay very highly for his stop of Maxlor's Rift Herald pop, and meanwhile, Afari should be able to polish off tower down in the bottom. That's first blood. 15 minutes and 40 seconds. I think that might be one of the longest ones we've had in the split.
Definitely in this split. We've had some slow ones in the past, but so far not in the last month. The thing about Pyke, though, is that he's very good at escaping. It is very difficult to burst him down, but when he can't outplay it, when he gets clicked on by Maxlor and trapped inside a brush, that becomes a whole lot more difficult for him to get on out of there.
Yeah, let's take a look at the play one more time. Vander. See, I believe this is after he pops the Rift Herald, and yeah, he sticks around a little too long.
By the ward, and that Senkuk starting off following in by Maxor and the whole gang. No way he's making out of that.
Yeah, scary Ghost Water Diver, no. Now, that is actually the first time this split we've had anybody die for the first time after 15 minutes.
Wow.
Let me restart that one. It's the latest first blood we've had. Thank you, Statistics, for telling me that one. And, well, they could have made it go a little longer if Vander had stuck around for the ward.
Poor Vander. He was just trying to do his duty there as the support. Didn't work, but don't want to see Schalke slow down, because I do feel like the mid game is where you want to make plays with the team. Obviously, the quote unquote the holy grail power spike of Ezreal going to be delayed a bit because he opted to go for the Blade of the Ruined King as a first item, but the Triforce from Nuke Duck should be coming in soon. I feel like there's a lot of ability to scrap with Pyke and Trundle in the mid game.
Yeah, there's definitely some options for them to work with their tools right now, and you can see they're already investing a fair amount of vision here, especially around the Baron side of the map. Now, there's no Rift Herald, there won't be Baron for another 2.5 minutes anyways, but Vander and Upset moving towards the mid. They want to try and fire down this tower. They just don't have the same level of control on the map because they haven't actually been able to find an outer themselves.
Yeah, Schalke probably going to need to group up if they ever want to enter into this river, but it's going to be very, very difficult. They're not going to be able to find a pick there on towards Mickey. And they give over a second Ocean Drake. This lets Misfits stay on the map for so long, Pyra.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those games I feel it's made by incremental wins, little tiny victories over and over again. This seems to be the smart Misfits game plan, and that gold lead is crawling up right now, Ender. We've got 3,000 in the lead. That's 1 kill, that's 3 towers, and that's, crucially, that's what Schalke doesn't have.
Yeah, and Misfits, they just continue to apply this pressure. They've been, I want to see the forward percentage for this team, because they've just been on Schalke's side of the map for so long in this game. Constantly pressuring now the inner line of turrets.
Yeah, the war of attrition, but now it's
baby.
Going to an actual war.
Oh,
the Mickey X! Bodyguard extraordinaire.
That was sick, stopping Nuke Duck in his tracks, because all in all, Nuke Duck would crush Hansama in that 1v1, but Hans, he's got a friend.
Oh, yeah, he does. I think he owes Mickey X dinner after that one.
I like to say a milkshake. That's my personal thing, you know, growing up with the sports. If anyone ever took one for the team, you get him a milkshake.
All right.
So get Mickey X a milkshake.
What do you do for lactose intolerant people? Asking for a friend.
They don't get milkshakes.
Oh.
They become very sad, and you don't buy them dinner. It's their fault.
They get nothing. Wow. I see how it is.
You ganked their lane.
Okay, good. I like that one better. All right, so Misfits. Hans Sama gets bailed out by Mickey X.
Oh,
and it looks
Vander.
like
No.
Vander's not going to be so lucky. Hextech ultimatum. Are you kidding me? He's going to flash just a smidgen too late. And Hans Sama takes him down now. There's a Chachi trying for the second win here, but it's not going to matter. Senkuk's in demon form. Misfits, it just looks like they're too strong right now.
There was just no playmaking from Schalke. Misfits have always been the ones pressing forward constantly. They have complete control over this jungle. Look at the control wards in this eastern quadrant of the map. How does Vander ever get into this area? The answer is they can't. This is the play from Nukeduck onto Hans Sama. He lands just about everything he can.
He didn't have to go back
but
in,
it's Mickey who gets him with the knock-up. Actually hits him from behind. That was so sad for Nuke.
Yeah, but Hans Sama definitely wiping a beat of sweat off that one. And he
like,
went in a little bit aggressive, but he still managed to get out alive.
Drops the calculated in Chaz, like, no problem. I knew that was going to happen. I had faith.
And we've already had some pretty hypey moments already in the first couple opening games of the day, Ender, but you take a look at the bottom right of your screen. Fnatic in G2, that one's going to be so sick. Like, if today is like a premonition of what's going to happen towards the end, I cannot wait for that final game.
That's a great one, and you know, if you check out that Match of the Week video, there's two very intelligent casters talking about what's going to be happening.
Handsome
as
well.
Very handsome.
Yeah, gotta love those voices.
It's crazy.
All right. I wonder who they are.
It's us.
Oh. I should probably watch that before casting.
Yeah, you probably should.
All right.
Oh, man.
So now there's a bait going on here with Schalke, two members sitting in the brush, but I feel like Misfits are a little bit stronger on this, and it's just such a huge gold lead. It's 5K ahead right now. Let's see if Schalke can try and equalize, but no, all they can do is pull Mickey.
Yeah, you don't want that, man. That's a big old tanky Braum, still with the flash, still with the Glacial Fissure. And now, you see what the cost is when Schalke group up and try to make a pick. Now, Alfari in the bottom lane has priority, has pressure as this wave is going to crash into the bottom lane turret. And there's going to be minions, there's going to be golden experience missed on the side of Schalke, because Chachi's not going to be there to pick it up, and that's actually, it looks small, but it builds up over time, and that's how Misfits have just grown this lead wide open.
And that's the critical thing, that there haven't been major mistakes, outside of a couple of unnecessary positioning errors by Vander, but Misfits don't need little mistakes, or a lot. They don't need big mistakes to win. They just need little ones. They can just keep forcing the advantage, and this is why this team is still undefeated, and it looks like that's going to continue today.
And it is very fun, I think, to see Misfits play a very different style. Even though there's only 3 kills in this game, and that's not very fun, the fact that they can show some variation, even still playing the standard comp with the Lucian as an AD carry in the bottom lane, it shows some depth here in how they actually go about playing out the match. They don't have to snowball in 20 minutes. They can just out-macro you.
Yeah, this is the same kind of thing we've seen showcased out of G2 Esports or other undefeated teams so far, is that the variety is king right now. Execution at the high level of that variety is even more important. Now, Misfits looking to try and set up around this Baron, but it will be a while before they feel super confident that they can just straight up take it without getting a few kills. But they've got this map controlled, as you pointed out. Alfari can just sit bottom, do what he wants to do, as long as Misfits can avoid getting caught out. They're perfectly fine.
Man, I just want to see Schalke do something. Go in and make a proactive play, because that's what we wanted out of them. And it hasn't happened yet.
You might get your wish. I don't know if it's going to be what you wanted, though. Teleport coming around the backside, but the fight has already started. Nukeduck trying to find someone to pick off. Not going to happen. Exhaust is gone down onto him, but Maxwell getting pulled back into a fight with Amazing, and a full channel of the culling is going to be dumped into the Aurelia before the Mundo finally gets the finishing blow. And everyone from Schalke is evaporating. Triple kill from Mundo, and you better believe it's Baron time, Ender.
Yeah, Alfari popping up at the triple. Now, without a smite, though, Misfits are starting up the Baron, but it's just an upset and a Vander, and there's no true shot barrage trying to steal this away.
Not going to happen. It's a bit of a slower Baron take, but all the same, there is no competition. Instead, they can't even try and finish off the mid tower. Nothing going for Schalke this game. So at 23-15, Misfits Gaming will secure Baron #1 of this game.
A little bit earlier than I expected it, honestly, with how the pacing of this game had felt for the first 20 minutes of that match. But after that Baron, pretty fantastic stuff in that team fight, because it was interesting because Misfits, their composition, they've got a bunch of drain tanks. That means they survive for a very long time with the Mundo and the Swain. So while Schalke do pick off the jungler at the start of Maxwell right off the bat, Misfits out-sustain and out-DPS Schalke over the course of this team fight.
Yeah, and Alfari just takes all the kills. I love that part. Just starts running.
Gets the last hit, whacks him with Cleaver. Doing what he wants.
Look at Mundo. He's the carry now.
Yes, he is.
All right.
He did the most damage in that fight.
He did.
There
I mean,
you go.
that's like full credit to him.
That's the power of the
I just am looking at Hans Sama full culling into Nukeduck's face. And, you know, they're going to be able to take a well-earned inner tower here. Now, remember, Schalke do not have a single turret, do not have a single objective. and they just haven't been able to execute on the play attempts they've made. Last-ditch Saloon right now. Nuke Duck, he might be going in for play a flank around the side, but is it strong enough?
Yeah, they don't have much wave there. It's almost like Schalke have to force with the flank here from Nuke Duck. He has the flash, so does Upset. There's a lot of playmaking still left here for Schalke, but Misfits, as has been the story of this entire game, are playing so controlled. Instead of risking a team fight around that inhibitor tower, they're going to back up and probably take down that Drake soon.
Wouldn't be too surprised, give them a little extra oomph in their push. And Mountain Dragon, of course, it doesn't hurt the fact that they've had a couple of oceans this game, because as soon as they get out of harm's way, they can heal back up and stay on the map so much, like you've been saying. Let's take a look at some of our item choices here. We're still waiting for the Trinity Force Ezreal, but at least he's got his Muramana in addition to Blade the Ruin King on the side of Schalke no Fear, but they need time.
Yeah, Upset playing a little bit slower with the build. Looks like it might be an Iceborne Gauntlet, actually.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Trinity
Okay,
Force is going to be a little bit more defensive with the dive here of Maxlord, but still, Misfits, they're continuing this siege. They've got a cannon minion with this wave, so if they protect it, it's going to do a lot of damage.
Hans Sama gets pulled back once more. His life gets saved by Mickey X, and Amazing is going to get deleted, courtesy of Maxlord, who goes in for round 2 onto Nuke Duck, gets tossed back and around. He's able to get the outplay, and Alfari into the back line, going wherever he pleases, and where he pleases is straight into Schalke's base.
I mean, Misfits, they look like they're getting caught there. Hold on that.
Zenkux, he was getting caught, but it doesn't matter because look at all the damage they turn around on Chachi. He just can't do anything. One chomp, but Han stays alive all the same. And Misfits Gaming cleaning up. Very nice.
That might just be it. They've got another minion wave on the way into the base. A little bit low on those death timers still, but Misfits, that's the base being broken right open in the face of Schalke.
All right, inhibitor number 1 taken down. They decide they do not want to try to end this one. A little bit low death timer still in this game. Amazing just comes back up off the fountain. But Misfits, it doesn't get a lot cleaner than that.
No, it doesn't. And I would like to point out there is now a little bit of damage into this build of the Dr. Mundo with that Titanic Hydra. It's something we have seen a little bit of, but that's why he's doing the DPS in these fights. He feels so confident with 4 kills that he's gonna get in the face of Schalke and still do the damage.
And people
he's
have
the
to hit
carry
him.
now, man.
People have to hit him. He's got a Bramble Vest too. Like that and his Burning Agony. Nobody's getting near this guy and living for very long. Let's take a look at this fight again.
Oh, man. I mean, it's a really good hook from Vander at the start. It picks off on some of the pillar from Amazing. Very helpful in that as well. But there's just no damage. Upset isn't doing what he needs to at this point in the game to be able to carry it out. Maxwell barely escapes from the death from below on Vander. Another clean team fight there for Misfits.
Yeah, now Senkus, it looked like he might have actually gotten caught here, but instantly Mickey X tags in. And honestly, this guy's got my MVP vote because he's not only saving lives, he's tagging forward very clutch use of the Glacial Fissure over and over again, and we saw it in that fight. So definitely some credit to Mickey.
Yeah, it's beautiful how Misfits have been playing out this game so far, and it's so difficult at this point in the game, it feels, for Schalke to actually deal with this composition from the side of Misfits. There isn't the damage they need at this point, and it's because they played so slowly for those first 20 minutes. It feels like they missed that window of opportunity where they could have made something happen.
And it goes back to what we talked about, the key difference between these teams being, like, well, one side has lanes that are very strong, that can kind of be self-sufficient at the very least and allow Maxlord to get in there and deal a lot of damage, get the farm up early, do whatever he needs to do. On the other side, Schalke are fairly reliant on Amazing to try and make some of these plays, and while he tried, he did keep Maxlord down in the early phases. It wasn't nearly enough to stave off this Misfit snowball.
They somehow have to shut down Han Sama in this fight. He's got the Essence Reaver now on the Lucian, so get ready for the mechanics field show. Han Sama is going to be able to do so much and click his button so fast in these fights.
If they even force another fight at this point, I feel like Misfits can just keep this pressure going right now. There's a naked inhibitor in the mid with a horde of minions charging through it. There's a dead one up or in the bottom, and now flashing forward. Maxlord was looking for Amazing. Instead, they just cut the legs off the wave here, and they should just be able to finish off the last tower outside the base for Schalke with no competition.
Schalke, there's no Baron on the side of Misfits for another 2 minutes, so should be able to clear away these minion waves, deal with the supers in the bottom side of the map, but it's going to come down to this next Baron buff. They're going to have to win a team fight around that objective, otherwise Misfits are going to take it and waltz straight through on towards Schalke's Nexus.
Very tough ask for Schalke, but It does seem a little bit rough. They haven't been able to get enough going. If they can pull out a fight like this, it will be nothing short of a miracle. There is a 12,000 gold advantage, Ender. We're not quite 30 minutes in this game now, but that is the late game in this meta.
Yeah.
But that's still a really big gold advantage, and I'm looking at the tower difference as to why.
8-0. That tells you that no plays were made by Schalke in the early game, but it's funny too, because 5,000 of that goal difference came from the Baron power play on the side of Misfits. We're really able to use that to break open the map for the first time around. Now they have the Mountain Drake to make the secure of the second Baron that much easier. And you just sort of start ticking all these boxes on the side of Misfits.
Yeah,
Get
just
the
the
dragon.
win one is the last thing you need.
Put a lot of control wards in the top side of the jungle so that Schalke can never get in here. Get the Baron, win a team fight, win the game. That's it.
Systematic instruction. So, Misfits Gaming, unless something horrific happens, these guys are well on their way to that 5-0. Very confident. Much confidence being built. But for Schalke, it just feels like what can you do other than not make the mistakes in the early game, play more actively, play a little bit more like we wanted to see out of these guys, like we were expecting with Amazing in this lineup. And it just seems like they've been outclassed.
It's interesting because this team has been fairly inconsistent. I'm going to hold my breath a little bit as this Chachi does step forward here. We might see a fight.
Okay, here goes Mickey X. There's the Vanguard's Edge. Just maybe a chance for them to get something happening. The Glacial Fissure. There goes Hextech Ultimatum on to visit Chachi. But meanwhile, everyone's getting cut through. Amazing trying to find Hans Sama. There goes the calling. And he's going to fall down. Alfari gets the final hit once again. And now Nuke Duck is caught, isolated from the rest of the team. Flashes burn on either side. Pulled back in. And nowhere for him to go, as much sustain as he has. It's a 1-for-2 trade. Max Lord did fall, but Misfits, they're not faltering in this push.
They might not go for the Baron here. They might look for this inhibitor first. They also have a minion wave on the top side of the map. Notice that Hansama does have the teleport, so he can just rejoin with the rest of the team and try to destroy even more of this Schalke base.
Looks like he'll do it. Now there's still 30 seconds on Nuke Duck, 15 on Amazing, but Misfits decide not to push their luck. Will they finally go for the Baron here? There is no smite, as you pointed out, on either team for the next 10 seconds.
That was the same story of the last Baron. Max Lord did fall down in that fight, but it's going to be a rinse and repeat here as they're all
very cautious
in this bush, man. They're just looking for that pick one more time, but Chachi can check with the Q.
Yeah, he thinks to do it. Instead, they get a little impatient. Now they're going forward. Okay, there's the rupture. They're pulling back in once again. Chachi, how tanky can you be, my friend? I don't know. It looks like he's going to get yanked back in, and the rest of Schalke can only sit and watch as their giant void monster gets taken down to 0.
Yeah, Hansama has the tank shredding in the build to be able to deal with that front line. And now with no feast on the side of Schalke, no top laner, Misfits, they're going straight over this Baron. It's 5 versus 4.
Total control here on the side of Misfits Gaming, and wow, the rest of Schalke have to try and clean up their base. Misfits get free time on the Baron, and they even managed to grab themselves a Skull Crab, as the crowd points out.
That's more important than the Baron, right, Pyra?
Yeah, it's a moral victory.
Oh, man.
More crabs for the Crab God.
See, I'm looking at this game, right? And you posed a question earlier about what did Schalke want to do differently. We'll talk about that in just a moment because it's all Misfits abusing the vision that they control here in the top side of the map, and the fact that Schalke just do not have the damage. They almost made the pick there on towards Hansama, but he's able to kite it out, get the culling to cut him down, and Max Lord Senka just buying time, zoning multiple members by themselves, which was fantastic to see out of them.
And one of those members that was zoned, Upset. He's finally got some damage, but it doesn't matter if you can't get in range to use it. On this blue Ezreal that's just trying to kite people out. If you get kited yourself, there's not much you can do now. A big channel of Colling is going to take Vander down halfway to his health bar. The final tower, not on the Nexus, will start to get fired down. Does get destroyed. Senka's caught up. Maybe this is a chance for Schalke to do something, anything, but everyone's tagging in. Misfits. Oh, they just assembled the team. Easy peasy right now, and Alfari just doesn't even care. He's taking everybody else down. They don't even need the inhibitor at this point. They're going to fire down Amazing, and Wash, Rinse, Repeat is the name of the game. Misfits Gaming, they've lost 2 members in this. They have lost no towers in this, and they take one of the cleanest games that I have seen in the post 8.11 world. As I say it, it looks like they caught a little bit much on the fountain. The Senkux KDA is going to get destroyed, but it doesn't matter. These guys are just having some fun, and Ender, well, they're ending this game.
Oh, man. GG, Pyra. That was Misfits all the way.
Yeah, wipe a little bit of sweat off there, Alfari. I mean, honestly, 1 or 2 beats is all he was going to take for these guys.
That was a long 33-minute victory on patch 8.12, but there was never a doubt in my mind that Misfits were going to pull away with that win. Calm, cool, collected, methodical was the approach from the best team in Europe.
You can't get very different than the last 2 games we just had. The first one was super back and forth, very reactive, scrappy fighting. The compositions were built for it. This time around, Misfits knew exactly what they wanted in their composition. And once again, Hans Sama just says, you know, what are you talking about with all these weird champions in the bot lane? I'm just going to take Lucian.
Nah, I'm going to play the marksman still and pop off while doing it. That was the big, you know, advantage that Misfits had in the early game. It was around Hans Sama and Mickey X saving him every single time he was at risk in the early game.
Very critical. Like, Mickey X was absolutely the unsung hero. Well, we sung his name a few times.
He was a hero, man.
But he was absolutely a hero for this game. He stepped up huge, not just to save Hans Sama, but several other members of the team. Alfari in the back lane, he did the Mundo thing at the end of it all. Like plan accomplished. 5-0 now for Misfits, and you know they said this is a redemption split. They're off to a pretty damn good start.
It has looked easy for Misfits, but the same could be said of Schalke. They were not happy with their performance in spring. They came back into summer trying to make changes with Amazing in the jungle, but the question still remains, what does a consistent Schalke look like? Because we've seen games where you know, their jungler, they're just popping off with Amazing in the early game, and it looks so good for them. And also games where nothing happens and they slowly lose out like this one.
Yeah, it really was unfortunate. They just didn't seem to have options. That was the strangest thing. And you've got to wonder, like, at that point, what are the comms like? What are Schalke saying to one another? Like, what do we need to be doing, guys? Obviously, Amazing is fairly relied upon, but it just seems like they were a little bit lost, and Misfits Gaming dismantled them.
Yeah, they were supposed to make plays this split. They didn't make plays today. That's what they need to go back to the drawing board for tomorrow.
Well, for the guys that did make the plays, remember to give us your vote for player of the game at LOL Esports on Twitter. Now your options are Alfari, Maxlor, and Mickey X. And I think any of them, honestly, make a good choice.
Dude, give me that Mickey. I said I wasn't going to bias the voters last game, but Mickey was saving everyone. He was always there to stop every single play that Schalke tried to make.
Absolutely. Now, we don't have to hear from ourselves. Let's hear from our analysts. What do you guys have to say about that one?
Well, we're very happy that Hans Sama isn't in the player of the game vote because he always wins it, and his team is very salty about that. So now it is time for Maxlor, for Alfari, or for Hans. No, I'm saying it again. Or for Mickey X to shine. Now, Misfits is now on a 5-game winning streak, and they did a lot of Misfits things, and that's exactly what we're going to break down. And as we look at the picks and bans, I just want to point out that this was probably the most standard game we've seen in the EU LCS in the last couple of weeks, because both teams went for standard AD carries, for a tank top, and for fairly normal meta picks outside of the meta, how it actually is right now.
Yeah, what I really liked about, especially the Schalke comp actually, is I really like the Ezreal, particularly being paired up with the Pyke. I think this was a really good opportunity for Vanda to kind of get out of the bottom lane and kind of go roam around the map. And but I mean, but for Misfits, I just think this was just a standard Misfits draft, and it just showed.
I was looking at it, and I was a little bit like, I'm not entirely sure what you're going for here, Misfits, because they early prioritized the Swain, which, given that they didn't ban away the Aurelia, kind of suggests to me that they considered a pretty good matchup. And it worked out fairly well in terms of the mid lane, but in terms of early priority, I was struggling to see, like, Swain versus Aurelia, do you really have that much pressure? Like, if you can't stop Vanda from roaming, will you really be able to punish the Ezreal down? But I thought there were a couple of risks in terms of the draft, but we saw the value that it had later on into the game.
Did you like, without knowing the outcome, the plan that Schalke came up with, as you guys talked a lot about what the opportunities are for Schalke to beat this undefeated Misfits? What did you make of the plan outside of the context of the game?
Yeah, for me, I love this plan. I think this is exactly what Schalke needs to do. I think that, you know, Misfits have shown that they have just really good standard laning phases. So what you really need is kind of shake it up a bit in the early game. And I really like this, again, as I said before, the Ezreal in the bot lane. It's a really safe pick. It can operate 1v2. And I really like Pyke. I think Pyke has really kind of stood out as the kind of OP roaming support. People have been picking it with like Ziggs. Again, Ezreal kind of fills that role. What I really like to see is Vanna to kind of make more plays around the map. But as we're going to look in a second, Misfits made it really hard for them.
It made it hard because a lot of Schalke's composition was leaning on Vander to make those plays around the map. Now let's take a look at how both teams approached the early game, and especially the vision. You wanted to compare Misfits' vision and Schalke's vision early, and this is Misfits.
Yeah, so we can see if we look at the minimap, like Misfits' vision absolutely covering this bottom lane. Like like really, like if you're Vander, like what can you do in this situation? Like what you really want to do is kind of just leave Ezreal to farm and like maybe kind of go to mid and help pressure. Aurelia was already winning this lane. I think it would have been really good if kind of Vander was there to help pressure that lane. And it just, what can you do in that situation?
So he basically couldn't get out.
Yeah, he has all the, like, they have all the vision. Like, Vander just can't do anything. He's just stuck in bottom lane, having to lane 2v2. And Lucian Braum is just I mean, you could see they had the pressure in the 2v2. It's just a better lane.
And it helps you realize how much of an awareness Misfits have as a team when it comes to preparing and coming into these games, because they identified, okay, the way in which we lose this early game is if Vander is allowed to leave lane, is able to impact, and they mitigate that as much as possible. But it gets even better when they don't just mitigate that, they then use that early vision to gain pressure in the enemy jungle.
That they do. I do also want to look at the vision for Schalke, because bottom lane was kind of a hard place. They couldn't get out of there. They were getting pushed in. However, they made some opportunities for themselves, or at least setups in the top lane, but they didn't capitalize on it.
Yeah, so for me, it was what was kind of disappointing about Schalke. You know, they had this like really good 3-pink setup in top river, and what I would like to have seen is for Vander to have left the bottom lane and kind of made a play topside. You know, we saw they had the pressure in mid lane, and we saw that, you know, the Herald was kind of up for a while, and for me, I feel like there was an opportunity there really to kind of, as we can see here, like we have all this vision topside, and what I would like to have seen is at some point, like maybe before this, for Vander to just kind of left Ezreal to just operate solo, and we saw that they had the pressure mid lane, they had the pressure top lane. Vander could have gone top, set up a 4-man dive, punish this Mundo. We've seen before when Mundo's been meta that diving him is a possibility in.
Yeah.
I'd like to have seen that.
And it's unfortunate for Schalke because they just weren't proactive enough, which is something that we have said about them in the first 2 weeks of the split. And we were hoping that Amazing would come in and help change about this team. But unfortunately, so far, while they have a good game plan in mind, they haven't really been able to execute on the few opportunities that Misfits were able to offer them. So it is a bit of a shame for Schalke. And unfortunately, after this point, given that they didn't try to be proactive, the game just slowly started to fall out of their control.
Yeah, we're going to take a couple of looks at the early game pressure that Misfits did have. It didn't net them the biggest of advantages, but it sets up the snowball that they're always looking to prepare for. Now, I hear you say Schalke did have the right game plan, but they couldn't push it through. Is this just the difference of watching a team that now has a new jungler and is learning some of the fundamentals again versus a team that has now really found their own because they've been playing together for a long time?
Yeah, so for me, I thought the Schalke's early game wasn't like the worst. I mean, we could talk about how, like, you know, they missed this opportunity, you know, to kind of make plays around the tight side. But, you know, Misfits for me has been one of the teams that have looked kind of the strongest in the early game, the 100%. Most controlled. And I think the fact that Schalke can go even, you know, as a relatively new team, I think that actually speaks a lot to their consistency going forward. I think that I wouldn't be super unhappy with this early game for them. I just think I would look at the opportunities that they missed. They'd be like, here's some times we could have taken advantages from Misfits, and I would just look to work on that instead. I don't think it was the worst early game.
No, when we look at it in gold, they were very close together. There were opportunities from Schalke, but as we've talked about, Misfits is really, really good at pushing their advantage and then striking when it is most necessary. Let's take a look at this fight they win around Baron, brought to you by Acer Predator, as this is really going to seal the deal for them.
And you can just see the talent that this roster does have as well. Their target focus is fantastic, especially with the positioning of Hansama onto players like Nuke Duck, the great flank that we saw from Alfari onto the backline, drawing a lot of the attention from Schalke, but it's also a situation where Schalke's comp is not built to team fight when you don't have that kind of early lead. Pyke does not offer the same utility that Braum does, and you could just see the difference why the cast were giving so much praise to players like Mickey, because Braum in those team fights becomes extremely clutch.
Yeah, I just wanted to parry what you said about Braum. I mean, really for me, like what sets Pyke and Braum apart is that Pyke is really all about roaming, setting up picks, and Braum is hardcore team fighting champion, really wants to get there, protect his carries, and we saw in this fight that, like, we saw in every fight, actually, that Braum was just kind of all over the map, protecting his carries, setting up these team fights. And honestly, just for me, Mickey just did a really good job.
Well, if we button up the stories for both teams, Misfits is still dominating. They're still winning the game the way they want to win it, with Maxlor still 100% first blood participation and setting up all the lanes. And Schalke, inconsistency, but there's improvement and there are building blocks there. However, week 3 now, we do want to see him taking some extra steps towards those important victories. A bit tongue-tied. Let's talk about the player of the game. It is Mickey X with 48% of the votes. You guys praised him throughout your entire analysis. Yeah. Well deserved.
Yes.
It was indeed.
He had a really good game, and it's one of those situations where Hansama always gets player of the game, and then you're like, wait a minute, was Mickey actually the one enabling Hansama all this time? 0-0-16 in this game, 100%. Oh, I didn't realize he had 100% kill participation as well. He has been a great performer this split, and props to him as well. One of the things he said in an interview was that his biggest weakness from last split was that he didn't communicate very well. Him and Hansama were a very quiet bot lane, and he wasn't very good at sharing information. One of those big things he wanted to overcome this split was being able to talk more and offer a little bit in terms of the shot calling and working with his team. And I think that we are seeing more of that from him so far in this split.
Yeah, for me, Mickey has been, I think, over the year, probably the best support in Europe. And for me, like, what he really needs to develop on now is his leadership skills. Because once you kind of reach your pinnacle in terms of skill, which I think he's getting close to. It really just how you develop as a player past that is really just your leadership skills and how you can kind of lead the team.
Let's see how he develops. But for now, Misfits is 5-0. We're going to check in with Medic, who is standing by with Sencooks.
Thank you very much, Shox. I am joined by Sencooks. Congratulations on the win. And Sencooks, we've heard them talk a lot about how you won that game and what the strategy was behind it, but I want to focus more on you as a player, because last split, a lot of people looked at you as one of the weakest mid laners in the European LCS. And this split, you're on the best team at the moment. You look like one of the strongest mid laners. What changed for you between the two splits?
I think in terms of the first statement, where I was like one of the worst mid laners, I can agree with that statement for the first 3-4 weeks of the split, but I also feel it was a bit over-exaggerated after like the ending. Towards the ending, it was going better and better, but right now the meta kind of suits me a bit more, I guess. Like all these champs is something I played for a long time when I started playing mid, and I don't know, I just put in a lot of hard work in between spring and summer, and I don't know, for some reason, every summer split of mine is always better than my spring split, and I don't know, like, it's just a curse.
It's good, though, because it shows the development and the improvement that you make. Maxlore talks a lot about how you guys sort of leveled up the synergy between the two of you. What is it exactly that Maxlore helps unleash within you?
I mean, we help each other, and we talk a lot to each other about how we should play different scenarios and stuff. And last split, we had to talk a bit more because we were a bit new duo, and I was used to playing with Trashy for a very long time. Oh, Cold, sorry, his new name. But yeah, I mean, we generally like to talk to each other about how we can do things differently, and we're always willing to improve, and we don't just slack around or get pissed at each other. Instead, we always look to find improvement.
That's a good strategy to have. I want to talk about Misfits generally as a team. A lot of people say you're the best team in Europe, maybe one of the top 3. You've got you playing this sort of more standard meta, Fnatic playing the self-proclaimed goon squad meta with the bruisers in the bot lane, and then G2 playing this funnel composition meta. Do you think that your meta will stand the test of time? Do you think you're going to be able to develop the best as a team coming into the rest of the split?
I mean, it's hard to say how the meta is going to develop throughout the split, right? Because it's not really on us. But I mean, sure, I think right now it would be an advantage for us to some extent, because the meta has always been what we are kind of playing now. That's the most standard. But I mean, if the meta keeps going in their favor, then sure, it might help them the way. But I'm not saying we can't play anything unorthodox either.
Well, we'll have to see as the split does progress. Also, I know you're a big football fan. I know you're a Danish fan. You're playing up against Croatia later in the week. I'm sure Perks is very happy for that matchup. How do you think the game's going to go?
I mean, it's an easy 1-0, isn't it? Eriksson with a goal, and we move on.
I hope that's the case. Good luck with the rest of the games this week and with the Denmark games as well. We're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be back with the next game after this.